Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sports Club podcast here at the Jamaica Observer. Of course, it's powered by JN Bank. My name is Donald Oliver. We've got a lot to talk about. We're still basking in the glory of what took place on Sunday. And I think that covers it enough for us because we didn't have Golden Monday. But lots to talk about and here to discuss all the happenings of today. Leighton Levy. Yeah. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad. A decent day. I mean, we didn't get to the medals today. Danielle Williams hit a hurdle and, fell out of contention. Akira Nugent didn't make the final, but our men are in the semifinals of the 100-meter hurdles, 110-meter hurdles,
right.
And women have advanced to the 400-meter hurdles semifinals. So I think there's still a lot to cheer about.
Yeah, lot to be grateful for. Trishana McGowan is also here with us. Trish, looking lovely in red, lady in red.
Please don't start singing.
Oh, we know what happens when I start to sing.
Yeah,
what
things
happened?
start to crack.
Really? That's so mean, Leighton.
But I know if you're being a
so-
singer.
I'm not.
That's so unbecoming of you, Leighton. Anyway,
Right?
My apologies.
Trish, what
Don't
about?
apologize for honesty.
What?
Tired,
You know what?
tired. I think we're all in that space where, it start taking a toll, having to wake up 4:30, 4 o'clock, whatever, go to bed late. But it's all worth it. I thought it was a tough day. Not bad, just tough.
Yeah.
And that's all a part of major championships. And I think I agree with Leighton. When you look at our 400-meter hurdlers, the two women, they're into the semifinals. Two of our three men in the 400-meter hurdles also through to the semifinal. No matter how them get there, they're there. The 110-meter hurdles men through to the semifinals. And tough for Danielle, Akira, who are in that, in
She
the
didn't
100
advance.
and the sprint hurdles, Amoy as well. But overall, I think that, we always, our athletes always put their best foot forward, and it was just tough, but we'll bounce back.
And Danielle, talk to me about Danielle. I mean, you're usually the reserved one, but a little bit of a disappointment there for all of us.
Yeah, and especially knowing how good she looked in the heats and the semifinals. I think she was really confident. Her form was spectacular, and I think over the season we saw how the addition or the increase of doing the individual 100 meters actually helped her. It's just unfortunate that she hit a couple of those hurdles and she couldn't get back, and that's why the sprint hurdles is possibly the hardest event to predict, because even picking Kambunji was not really on the cards. But I think Danielle has consistently proved that she is a big-time performer when it comes to getting to finals. I know that going into most years, she isn't an overwhelming favorite, but she always goes in and gives herself the chance. And being a two-time world champion and
a bronze medalist as well.
And a bronze medalist as well is nothing to scoff at. So she will take this, and hopefully she'll be able to keep this momentum even in an off year next year. But it's still a positive sign for her.
All right. It's time to join our man on location in Tokyo, Andre Lowe. Andre, welcome again to the Sports Club podcast. Relatively quiet day for Jamaica. Danielle Williams in particular finishing down the track in the 100-meter hurdles final.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Big up. Welcome back to Tokyo. Big up everybody in studio. Yeah, would have been really hard to, replicate the heights that we experienced, yesterday with the 100-meter finals and so forth. Yeah, very tough race for Danielle Williams. She would have come into this race, expecting to do a lot more than what she was able to show. 12.5 is not going to get you a medal, not going to get you anywhere close to a medal this day and age in this event, right? In truth, looking at the form sheet, not a lot of persons would have, expected Danielle to medal here. She has only gone below 12.4 once this season, and that's her 12.31 personal best. But also, on the other hand, you never rule her out when it comes to a final. She has shown over and over again, that she can produce when it's least expected. But was not to be today. Of course, Kambunji Pretty big surprise, if you ask me. Came out and got the win over Amusan, our Nigerian sister, trains here in Jamaica, or there in Jamaica, with, of course, Glenn Mills and, Lacinda as well, being a part of that setup. And, Grace Starks got the bronze there. But Masai would be even more disappointed than Danielle, I believe. But very competitive race. Spoke to Danielle after the event. She said, boy, that first part of her race really threw her off. Hit the second hurdle, and you're not gonna catch 12.2, right? So she was just trying to do damage limitation at that point. She is disappointed, but she knows that she has more to give, and she's really looking forward to giving more, as we go forward.
Yes, and on the men's side, both Tyler Mason and Orlando Bennett, they have the fastest times heading into the semi-finals tomorrow.
Yeah, you know what? I think both guys really did well. Both guys really impressed. Tyler Mason, a season's best in his first run. When these things happen, you kind of ask yourself, did he go too fast? Did he have to go that fast? Has he left enough in reserve, right? But, Tyler has been around for a while. He has not had many opportunities at this level for a myriad of reasons, whether it's injuries or other factors. There was a point when he was considered to be one of our brightest young prospects, and it just never happened for him. He's here now, and he's trying to take every opportunity with both hands. You can tell that he's very confident, and he said that himself and his coach, Ronaldo Walcott, they have been working on a few things, and he's really looking forward to the semifinals. He believes he has what it takes to get into that final and challenge for a medal. Orlando Bennett, also supremely confident after today's run. Very close to his personal best as well with that 13.20. Interesting case. He has been here before, just hasn't been able to get beyond that semi-final hump. This is his third or fourth major international championships, and has always found himself in the semi-finals, but has not been able so far to get into the final. He said, this is a time, this is a point when he makes that jump in performance. Shout out to, of course, young Prince. Of course, the least experienced among all three, but he too is in the semifinals. Very interesting to see what he's going to do there. But all three gentlemen are in the semifinals, and they are confident that they are going to get into the final, get where they believe that anything is possible.
Yes, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing what Tajay Gale in particular does in the long jump final as well.
Yeah, he's looking really good. Walked through the mix zone, didn't speak to anybody. He did say that, after the final he'll do his talk, but he was bouncing, he was smiling, he looked in very good spirit. I guess 8.15 and easy qualification into the final will do that for you. Very experienced, very successful. Remember, he's coming off a bronze medal at the last World Championships and a former champion from 2019 as well. Now, with no Wayne Pinnock, he probably feels that he has the responsibility to ensure that Jamaica remains on the podium in this event. But yeah, pretty good performance from him. Nikolai as well, he's also into the final. Kerry, very disappointed. He said that he has been dealing with a hamstring problem that has really hampered him in his preparation and his performance tonight. But two guys in the final, should be interesting. Really excited to see what they're going to do.
All right, Andre, thanks very much. I know you don't have a morning session to look forward to, but I hope you can sleep in a little bit later. But thanks for all the hard work that you're doing, man. Yeah,
always a pleasure. Always look forward to speaking to you guys. Again, loving the show. And I guess we'll talk tomorrow, yeah?
All right, Andre Lowe, our man on location there, giving us all the details on what has been a relatively quiet day. Leighton, we spoke off here. You didn't really agree with the fact that I said it was a quiet day for us. I guess we should be a little bit more grateful.
Yeah, I think so. Listen, like take Tyler Mason, for example. Mm-hmm. This was an outstanding high school hurdler. Won silver at the World Youth Championship way back in 2014.
Yeah.
Over the next 11 years, he's had to live a nightmare life as an athlete, fighting injuries, surgery, all kinds of disaster that if he had decided to walk away from the sport, I don't think anybody could blame him.
Right.
But he persisted. He kept pushing through. Missed out on national championships 2 years in a row, just coming fourth, just outside the top three places. He gets an opportunity this time, and he's into the semifinals at the fastest time, 13:17. Orlando Bennett threw as well, second fastest. The Mario Prince threw all this fast. And all of this, despite the fact that our best hurdler, Rashid Broadbell, is out with injury and surgery. So it's a positive sign for Jamaica's hurdling depth. And of course, there are a lot of young hurdlers coming through the collegiate system as well. So, watching Tyler Mason come through the adversity and get to this level where he's in the semifinal of a global championship is something to celebrate. I mean, it's not a medal, not yet, but it could be a medal. And even if it's not, it signifies a major step forward. Because one of the things that that's disappointing for me, is that when an athlete does not live up to our personal expectations, we slate them. We call them chokers. We say they are no good. But we don't know the challenges that they go through to get to where they are. And I think
Jamaican thing.
and then
communicate well.
and we see that story played out time and time and time again, where athletes go through adversity, find success. And look, they might not medal, but qualifying, getting to a world championships in itself is a success. And of course, then getting into a semifinal is even a bigger success. Getting to the final is yet another success. Getting on top of the podium, of course, is the cherry on top. But we need to celebrate these small wins because there's significant stories behind these small wins.
Yeah, I think Shelley and Fraser Price said it in one of her post-race interviews yesterday. When she was asked about the connection with like Marie-Jose Talu, etc. And she said, they're not unique. Their stories are not unique. The injuries, the struggles, the constant waking up when they don't feel like it, showing up when you don't feel like it, showing up when you're having your own personal challenges. And I think, for me, I constantly grant grace to athletes, not because, being a former athlete, I know the struggles, and whether you made it on to the Olympic Games or the World Championships, once you step into that space as an athlete or look to go on a professional level, that your story isn't unique or any different from those who make it and those who doesn't make it. And it's a tough sport. It's a tough business. Like anything else in life, every aspect and every sporting discipline, it comes with challenges. And I don't think that, our athletes are unique to it. But it doesn't dismiss that, like Leighton said, personal expectations when those are not met. Because we don't, in my opinion, Jamaicans doesn't oftentimes communicate our emotional feelings very well. We then lean to being critical. I don't think we really mean it deep down, but because our feelings hurt, like, you hurt my feelings, and y'all go talk, especially if it's a man or a woman, you go talk boldly. I think so my girl I go win, and I think him I go win, I think I go. And then they don't deliver. It breaks their heart, and sometimes that doesn't come out well, in my opinion.
And I think one major thing about, looking at the sport from a Jamaican fan's eyes is that context is often lost on them, which is why they tend to sound ungrateful. For example, even when you look at our results this morning in the 110 meter hurdles, if you told Jamaicans before that Rashid Broadbell and Hansel Parchment wouldn't be participating, it would be doom and gloom. But now we have three men that are in the semifinals and potentially can be in the running for a medal. Rochelle Clayton and Genevieve Russell, two of our more formidable 400 meter hurdlers over the years, unable to participate. But now we have Sharon Salmon and Anjanette Knight, who looked absolutely fantastic. So I think we need to understand that, sports sometimes is a cycle. Your favorite may not necessarily be there all the time, but there are people who are coming up and are producing the goods. And don't fall in love with them, and then when them don't do what you expect them to do and they don't do it, you fall out with them, and then you fall in love with somebody new, and the cycle continues.
But do they fall out of love though?
No, it's a fickle thing.
Yeah.
Huh? Like there's this amazing thing that I heard yesterday. People calling Kishane Thompson a choker.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
Well,
No, you win an Olympic silver medal, you have a world championship silver medal, you're a choker? Really?
But then it's coming back to what I'm saying. it wasn't a different country that won. Oblique Civil from Jamaica won. And a lot of people were rooting for Oblique. Their Oblique fan base is huge.
Yes.
Right? Just to those who don't know. On TikTok, on X, Twitter, Facebook, people look to Oblique. You know, again, he has made so much promise, finishing fourth, etc. So there are people rooting for him. But then I think now, coming back to what we were saying, I think it's people like, you know, when people used to support Asafo. And then he flattered to deceive.
But he still held his support, though, I think. I think
that's what I'm saying. So that's why I said I don't think they're falling out of love. You know, it's more disappointment. Okay. And sometimes I just think that they don't express themselves well.
I think even to Leighton's point, you know, to even... And Asafa, as you know, is my favorite athlete of all time. To come close. But to compare Kishane and Asafa is a little bit unfair to Kishane, knowing that his first, you know,
appearance at the
full
his first two major championships,
medals,
silver medals.
Yeah.
And it's not like him lose and him run 9.95 or something like that. He just so happened to lose to two men who produced their best performances ever. So I don't understand this sort of fickle mentality.
I'm telling you.
I think regardless of whether Oblique won or not, if Noah had won, it doesn't make Kishane a choker. I think getting on the podium is the hardest thing in track and field. And I think and again, it goes back to context, when people start to understand that, they will appreciate the achievements that we have on the world stage.
So let's talk about the 100-meter hurdles now, in the final in particular, with Danielle, of course, reaching the final, but unable to medal. It's so unpredictable, this race. Yeah. And you give your hurdlers more grace than other athletes, I think, because of its unpredictability.
It's a minefield. Huh? You have 10 obstacles that you have to get over. Danielle looked good in the semifinal. She looked good in the first round. She looked good in the semifinal. In the final, as she said afterwards, she went for it. Came off the first hurdle and then got too close to the second hurdle and then literally crashed into the hurdle. The fact that she still ran 12:51, I think it was, for seventh.
I thought she was going to stop.
Tells you just how good she was, because had she not hit that hurdle, she may well have very much won or been on the podium at least. I mean, who saw Detajik Kambunji winning gold?
Nobody.
Despite her, what I was saying in regards to her, she has had a quiet season, but good.
Yeah.
She has been producing, but I don't think coming in.
I think this is her second national record for the season.
So I don't think anyone saw the gold medal going around her neck. What would, again, like you said.
Yeah, look, the sprint hurdle is like this. If you run that race 8 different times, you probably get 8 different winners. That's what it is.
Yes.
Because there is a time when you could run 12.5 or 12.4 and you're on a podium. No. What was the third place time? Grace Stark was at 12:30 what? 12:34? 12:24, 12:29, 12:34.
Yeah.
So people forget that just a few years ago, Joanna Hayes won an Olympic gold medal at 12:35. Not just a few years, it's been a while back.
Yeah.
But the reality...
And what was Bridget's time as well? 12:40? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so the thing is, the sprint hurdles for women right now is at a level that there are about 13 or 14 women in the world right now who are below 12.5. Nadine Visser ran 12.28 a couple of weeks ago, and she was 7th in this race, right? Toby Amerson, the world record holder, had to fight back to get back to second, 12.29. Grace Stark has been running. Grace Stark ran 12.21 this year. She finished 3rd in 12.34. So if you ran this race as many times as people in the race, you could probably get 8 or 9 different winners. That's how close it is.
The field is, clearly with quality, but I think, I normally, I had on my medal prediction table a medal coming from the event,
right?
Because we had the quality going in, and that's just the truth. Of those 4 women, 3 of those had Megan competed, Megan Tapper.
Right, yes.
We have the quality in 3 of those 4 women that could have hit the podium. But again, it's really unpredictable, and it's a tough one for Danielle. And I'm gonna tell you why it's tough. She gives very good interviews, but I can tell you she's heartbroken. Whenever she's at her best, that's when I think she doesn't get the win in the hurdles. And then next year or 2027, if she should choose to continue the sport,
No, she's going
she doesn't look the best. That's when she spring that surprise on the nation and
Yeah.
the field and I'm telling you,
Yes.
each time she has looked her best. And you know when she's at her best, she's running the 200 meters and dropping her time, lowering her time. She does it in the 100 meters. We saw her all season between the sprint hurdles and also the 100 meters. So we know we were well aware of the form that she's in and how she managed those 2 rounds. But things just,
Yeah,
once she hit that second hurdle, I
the
thought she was going to
ease
stop.
At which
So-
she ran 12:40 in the opening heat tells you just how great a form she was in.
I tell you what, Danielle, because another athlete that we hold dear and, always, our emotions rise to the surface whenever we see her perform. And of course, we have been tracking her from Excelsior High, Akira Nugent. And of course, at the end of her semifinal, she was in tears as well. In terms of what's been happening with her, I can't even say what does she do to make it to the next step, because I believe that she has reached there, touched there on several occasions. But what do you think is happening this time around?
I wish I could give you a straightforward answer, because Akira, I felt, was in shape to probably go 12-2, 12-1 of what we've seen this season. She looked pretty dominant on the Diamond League circuit. She did well on Grand Slam track. And, going as fast as 12-3 this season, to me, not even looking at 100% her best. But if you look at how she executed that race, her best part of the race to me is between the 30 and 70 meter mark. And then, I believe she hit that 6th or 7th hurdle.
I think it was the 8th. It was really late in the race.
Yeah, so it might have been the 7th or 8th hurdle, because she was actually gaining ground, and I felt that she would have gotten that top 2 spot. But I'm hoping that she doesn't see this as necessarily a failure, but more of a lesson, especially after what happened in Paris last year. In terms of just pure numbers, I think that we can safely say that she is our top hurdle when it comes to times, and she's still pretty young. She just left university. So that's why I'm hoping that she doesn't think that
she's going to think that.
Well, I'm hoping
just
that
the truth. They
I'm just
think that
hoping that she doesn't and she
doesn't
doesn't
prolong.
embrace it. Yeah.
I think these are teething pains for Akira. I mean, if you look at her collegiate career, when she was at Baylor and she went to Arkansas, she closed out her collegiate career with a NCAA title, with a windy 12-2 something, I think it was. Then she turns pro, and she has an up and down year at the Olympics, crashing out. And then she comes back and she wins the national title and runs 12:24. It tells you that the talent is there. But sometimes the transition to the senior ranks is not as easy as we think it is sometimes, especially regardless of how talented an athlete is. And I think these major championship hiccups for Akira is just part of the teething pains, as I said, the growing process, learning to navigate the highest levels of the sport when it really matters at major championships. One-off race is fine. Then you run fast because it's only one race, but then to navigate the treachery of the rounds is probably something that she needs to work on from a physical standpoint, but also from a psychological standpoint, because there's going to come a point when, this is the second major championship now where she has fluffed her line, so to speak. That then probably creates a situation where she begins to doubt herself. And if that happens, then she might need help in terms of getting herself back on track mentally.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I find with Akira is that she's an emotional person.
Yeah.
And sometimes that emotion has a way of getting in her own way. And so if she comes up on where she finds that clarity, that calmness that is required at this level, then she'll find her success eventually. And as you said, she's still young.
Yeah, and she's a person of faith as well. She probably doesn't really want to wear the mantle of being God's strongest soldier. But having said that, it's something that she has to go through, Trish.
Yeah, it's a process. Listen, when you assess sports, and for many people, they see just track and field. And for me, I look at sports through the lens of sports. We like to think that one doesn't help the other, it does. And I think I remember I read somewhere when Kobe Bryant took his daughter to ballet, and he was just sitting there like a dad, watching her at ballet, and thinking like, oh, why they be, how they were reacting to it. So he decided to try it. When he tried it, he realized like, oh, this can now become a part of my routine. It helped him, he said, in his game going forward, ballet. Yeah. So for me, we the process just seems straightforward, but it's way more than that. And I hope now going forward, she will do the work that is necessary, because again, sometimes it's more than just what, they do on the track.
Well, let's take a look at the men's side now, the 110-meter hurdles, because a couple of our athletes did really well. They have the fastest time heading into the semis. And we are talking about Tyler Mason, 13.17, Orlando Bennett, 13.20, both finishing first in their heats. How good did they look, Danielle?
I was really impressed by Tyler Mason, and I think being in lane one sort of helped him, because I think sometimes when you're in the middle of the track, as focused as you are on the race, your peripheral view kind of, either as an whether inexperienced or experienced hurdler, sometimes that can phase you. But I think he just focused solely on his race, and he looked pretty good to me. Orlando, he got through pretty well. Prince, slightly, he could have executed that race a little bit better. But knowing that you do make the semifinals, especially in his first time as a representative for a major team, I think that's huge. So it's hard to not see us at least getting one in the final, especially if Tyler is able to even go better than what he did in that heat this morning.
What can you tell me about Prince, Leighton?
Well, I mean, Damar had a decent collegiate season, so maybe he's a little bit tired, because as we've seen, Tamar's McCollum bowed out at the semifinal. Dejanay Oakley hasn't looked quite herself. Aliyah Butler, the NCAA champion, looked a shadow of herself in her 400-meter heat. So I think Damar Prince might be feeling a little bit of fatigue, because when you're competing since December last year, indoors, going into outdoors, sometimes the body just does not respond to, what you want it to do. He looked a little bit rusty to me today. I think, what was it, 13:31, I think was the time that he ran. So when you're looking at him, you're probably thinking, can he, now that he's in the semifinal, can he do what is necessary to get to the final? He's going to have to probably dig deep down emotionally to tap into whatever reserve is left, because it's been a long, long season for a lot of these collegiate athletes, with the World Championships beginning in September. You're going on for almost a full year.
Yeah, they're running on fumes.
And many of them are running on fumes. So, Tyler hasn't raced that much this year, which I think probably is helping him now. And of course, Orlando Bennett, similarly, he's had a few Diamond League races. So his program probably but definitely designed for him to run well here. And as he said in a post-race interview this morning, that he intends to be on the podium. So his objective is clear. And so it will come down to how well he executes in the semifinals and get to a final. Because what we've seen this year is that Jacoby Thorpe, the US champion, is a collegiate athlete. He looked good in his qualifying heat as well. But the defending champion, Grant Holloway, he's had his injuries and had his issues this season, and hasn't looked at his best. Because even in the heat with Tyler Mason, he was, as the commentator said, it's like he becomes a different person in the second half of his race. So there's a sense that there's an openness to this event. Yeah. And I think if the Jamaicans can perform up to what their personal expectations are, they could possibly end up in the final and eventually on the podium.
You think that way, Trish?
I think so. Again, it's coming back. We thought Masai, Danielle, Tobia Musan, yes, she's on the podium. But I'm just saying, for the women's sprint hurdles finals that we witnessed today, who we maybe thought would have been more medal winners, I think, other than Masai. it didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
And this is why we show up. Nobody needs to be hanging medals around anybody's neck
Right.
before a major championships. And the setbacks for a lot of these athletes can even happen while they're warming up. So sometimes many are not coming in fully injured. There's always something you're feeling. The body takes it a toll, for the wear and tear.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Orlando looked very comfortable this morning, very confident this morning.
Mm-hmm.
He performed like, I am the man to beat.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. And other his competitors, they would have seen the same thing.
Tajay Gale, let's talk about the long jump for a little bit now because Tajay Gale, 8.29 meters to win Group B?
8.28, was it?
2.8. Yeah.
2.8. Danielle, what are your thoughts on that jump? The fact that he is the competition's leader heading into the final now.
Let me say it's a surprise, but it's not a surprise. We know that a very fit and focused Tajay Gale can go 8.69 and higher.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that over the last few years, due to injury and it obviously affected his form, that he hasn't been able to get back there. But since joining Coach Ricketts, he hasn't competed much this year. I think he's only broken, before today, he's only broken 8 meters twice, if memory serves me right.
Yeah, 8 meters 34, and there's another mark.
Yeah.
20 something.
Yeah, so he hasn't had a consistent season where he's been consistently jumping, but I think that's somewhat helped him, knowing that he comes in pretty fresh. He hasn't had that long season starting from January, February, and to produce that on his third attempt is pretty good. Now, I think the only question is, can he continue that into the final? Because sometimes he has a big jump in him. But I'm hoping that he's able to step up a little bit more, and I would see him as one of the favorites to get on the
There
podium.
is something that happened today that I think suggests that he has had a breakthrough of sorts. After the first 2 jumps that were pretty ordinary, and I think one was a foul, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He had a conversation with Kerry Lee Ricketts, as most jumpers tend to do, and then he hit the last jump. And when he came out of the pit, he raised his arms like this, like, yeah, I figured it out. So I'm hoping that's what it meant, the body language suggests. Because if he's figured it out, we know what he can do. 8 meters 69 is one of the best jumps in history. If he can bring that to a final, he will beat everyone there, including Tentoglu, because when you look at what the long jump has been for the past few years, I think 8.54 that won, or 8.52 that won the Olympics in 2021, or was it the World Championships? Was it when Pinnock lost to Tentoglu on the last jump?
Yeah.
Was it the World Championships in Budapest? I'm trying to remember. Nobody has really gone beyond that distance,
Not since.
right? So if Tajay, who has gone 8.60 before, is able to find something in the region of 8.48, 8.50, which is well within his capabilities,
Right.
I think he possibly wins it.
Yeah, Trish?
My theory with the field events remains the same, and it does, and it's never proven wrong. And you sometimes, if things in terms of the series, remember it's series and attempts in the field events. If those usually go right for the medal contenders or the top athletes, we see them getting onto the podium. But then there are moments where it doesn't go according to plan. And, sometimes one get a big moment, a big throw. I think we saw it in the women's discus throw as well, which was really good between Morales, Alman, and I remember who was second. But you just need that good series. And I think first of all, I don't think many have Tajay on the podium, first and foremost, considering the season he would have had. For him, I think the confidence booster he needed, because athletes need a reassurance. And their performances oftentimes gives that. Their body's responding, the adrenaline is everything flowing well together. And I think, when you looked at him this morning, I think he found that place. And hopefully he can repeat it and he can get onto the podium, whatever he's able to produce to get onto that podium. I think he will be thrilled about it.
Yeah, because none of the marks that have been, E-Hammer and, Metentoglu and all the others who have been leading, Furlani,
Haven't been earth shattering.
they haven't
Yeah.
been extraordinary
They're all
jumps. It's
attainable.
830s and 840s, which 15, 20 years ago would probably not even get them on the podium. So I don't think anything that's been produced now by the top athletes in the event is beyond anything that's beyond Tajay at all. In fact, I was disappointed that Kieran McLeod didn't make the final because Kieran has jumped 8 meters 40.
Yes, he has.
And he could only manage 7 meters 86.
And that's what I'm getting at regarding the field events, because it's you feel good in the moment, you feel good going in, you're having a relatively good season, quote unquote, and sometimes it just doesn't come together. You don't get that feel, because remember, Roger Stoner, for example, he wasn't no medal. Nobody had him to medal last year. Let's just be very honest. The commentators there didn't have him to medal. But that one big throw, that one big moment landed him not just a gold medal, but the Olympic record.
Yeah.
So again, when you look at even Nikolai, I was like, oh, wow, and it got him through, I think, 8:13?
8:15.
15 got him through.
He hit the qualifying start at the right. But he's jumped 8:16 this year.
Again, I think, we'll always have those moments, though, I think, where every now and then, whether it be one on the track or a couple in the field events that surpass expectations.
Yeah, because when you look at even 2019, when Tajay won, it was his last jump that he hit the
Final
winning.
jump. That he got into the final. Remember Stephen Francis was stressed out.
Yeah,
the man still maybe have hypertension probably. I don't even know.
But the field events, I think, and Trish is right. I mean, it depends on, sometimes it just doesn't go right for you on the day, because in many ways, it's kind of a rhythm event. If your run-up doesn't work right, nothing will go right. And as a former long jumper, not a very good one, but the run-up sometimes, you just can't hit the right rhythm. You can't hit the right stride. You mark your steps, and for some reason, you keep missing.
Yeah, and the coach is there, which is why the field event athletes need their coaches.
Yeah.
They need their coaches, because again, them training for it. That's what I know people say, oh, what they've been training for it. No.
It's not just all about rhythm.
No, sometimes they make an adjustment, like Leighton said. You make the adjustment with the tape, you go back there, you do this.
And then you end up 6 inches over the board. It's I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is. Because
they always need a third eye.
Yes, it's
Exactly.
because
sometimes like, for example, you'll have, I used to use that 20-meter run-up mark, which is about 13 steps for me. And when you run up, and then when you plant, because you can't break your momentum before you hit the board, unless you're not going to get the momentum into the board. And then when you hit, and then you see a red flag go up, and you're like, how? And you say to the guy monitoring the line, how far over? Him tell you, you're a foot over. I'm like, how am I a foot over?
And then, which is why nowadays, in the modern day of the sport, you see the even Andre Edwards, Bog, who helps the MVP team. No, they're not just there correcting. A lot will maybe have a tablet or whatever it is, screening what's happening. So you actually see, and you have to go back and maybe take a little step off, whatever it is to the marker, as well as maybe adjust your speed.
Yeah. Speed and the stride length. Because sometimes, you see that first stride? That first stride might be 6 inches bigger than you usually do. And you don't even know it, because you're pushing for something extra. And you push out, and then you're a few inches ahead of where you normally are. And it throws everything else out.
What's her name, that triple jumper, did the surgery?
Rojas?
Yeah, Rojas.
Okay.
For perfect example, I think it was 2 years ago at that World Championships. Or was it last year?
No,
remember,
it's 2 years ago.
we know
She
how
did
good
surgery.
she is. I mean, the woman just run to the board, jump on the gold medal. And she was sweating at one point, if you remember.
Yeah, she was struggling.
And I think it was her last jump. And she got that medal. She was off the podium. So, again, with the field events, I'm hoping Nikolai and, Tajay can have a very good outing throughout their series attempts. And I'm really hoping it will land at least one of them on the podium.
Let's go back to the track, the 400-meter hurdles in particular. Angelique
The
Knight,
best event ever.
Cheyenne Salmon, both going through to the semis. Knight finishing in second in her heat, 53.74 seconds. Cheyenne Salmon second in her heat as well, 54.21 seconds. Danielle, talk to me about those two in particular.
Yeah, I think Anjanette looked she looked really good, and to basically be neck and neck with Anna Cockrell, one of the favorites for the podium. I thought she executed her race very well. That first 300, she was pretty good. Cheyenne as well. Even though she didn't finish in that top two, I think once you finish in that top four, it's okay. Because obviously she's into the semis. It's just the only concern with Cheyenne is probably that last 50 coming over that final hurdle. But I think have that day's rest and everything. So both looked pretty decent and should be in good contention.
Before the 4 hurdles started, you saw they showed us the camera shot of the hurdles. Just before the hurdles start, and it looked short. Well, I agree with Danielle that some adjustment needs to be made for her coming home. When you're starting on the first 5 look short, But you see when you...
And you're talking from experience.
Let me tell you now.
Hurdle 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You see hurdle 6, especially 7, 8, 9, and 10 coming home. Boy, Danielle.
You just want jump over there.
I understand.
It look Olympic height, I'm telling you.
You want jump over,
but I agree that, if she should be a little bit more fluent coming home, she can run herself into the final. I do agree. I'm just saying, them hurdles look like Olympic height, 110-meter hurdles.
Yeah,
when you're coming home.
When I look at the heats and saw the performances this morning, I realized there's an opportunity for either Cheyenne Salmon or Anjanette to get onto the podium. Why? We know Fempigabal is most likely going to win, or Anna Cockrell, because Cockrell beat her at the Olympics last year. But one of the big names in the event, Savannah Sutherland from Canada, the NCAA champion, did not make it through. That, I believe, opens a window for one of our Jamaican women to take advantage of. Will they? Is the big question, because Anjanette has a way of, I don't know, she looks good for 300 and in the last 100, she's dead. I don't know what it is.
Does she go too hard?
Well, the race model that she uses is that she goes out hard for the first 200 and tries to take it home. But and Cheyenne Salmon hasn't been as consistent as she been a couple of years ago.
In that event,
yeah, because that year when she ran 52.97 in Rome, she was running 53s all year. Now she's 54. I think she may have picked up an injury. I remember at a Velocity Fest meet up by Jamaica College, she was running I remember it was a 400 or 200. And then she stopped mid-race and came up the track. And I asked her if she was okay, and she said she was, but I don't think she was going to tell me anything otherwise. But since that time, she hasn't looked herself. Cheyenne Salmon had gotten to a level where she was consistently either 54 low or 53s. This year she hasn't, and she won 54.21 this morning.
Which is a season's best.
Yeah, which is to my point.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she is the one that's going to take advantage, but I think based on what we've seen from Anjanette, she's run 53s consistently all year. So if she can do something and get her time down to 53 low, who knows? There's no Sidney McLaughlin to stress people out this year. So maybe she can take advantage and get herself on the podium.
As far as the men are concerned, though, a couple of guys are through. Malik James King, of course, being one of them, as well as Rashawn Clark.
I don't know if I'm a cause. I'm a talk too, right? Even though from yesterday with a shout in my voice, so I'm not too. Listen, I don't know. I need to come assess up a Usain Bolt track where oblique train, Rashawn train, we saw Banji, Frederick Dakers and knock over table. They're just in the process of stressing us out. One, of course, big up to Malik, did enough to make sure that he was into that automatic qualifying. Rashawn Clark, though, the man forgot that there are people on 2 sides of him. Rashawn busy looking left only, and homeboy on the inside, on his right, snuck in and got that automatic spot. And I'm like...
He admitted afterwards that he should have paid more attention to what was on his
outside. You remember when Sharika looked up at the board? And I'm like, and these are the things where and people wonder, why Stephen Francis them charge them money and Glenn Mills, why you have to pay the coaches. These are the things they have to be working with. Like, this is not a part of the plan. Yeah, we have plan execution.
What about for
charge them money.
For?
What do you mean by for what?
Because they're gazing in the race?
Coaches should be paid properly.
Oh,
because that's
I
what
thought you
I'm saying.
meant for a specific
No,
reason.
No,
Yeah,
they should be paid properly because
Rashawn
it's not just,
explained afterwards that
them a headache.
he had a race plan. And when he came off the 8th hurdle, I think he looked across to his left and saw that he was in 3rd,
Which he was.
but then he forgot
To look to his right. I like when the people in my
And he
drive
said that mistake,
almost cost him.
it almost cost him until he won't make it again.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, no, but sometimes all it takes is a near miss for you to understand how close he came to being eliminated.
I was like, you should have seen me.
Yeah, Malik he explained afterwards that he has had some injury issues this year and he hasn't been at his best.
I think he pulled out of the Grand Slam initially, one of them, because of that said injury.
Yeah.
And Rashawn as well suffered some injury.
Yes, Rashawn suffered a hamstring issue in Florida.
Yeah, so the athletes, again, the bodies go through a lot through the training, the gym, the track, the competitions,
Yeah, because I had a discussion this morning where if you consider that since Rashawn ran at 47.3 in was it Budapest?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, he hasn't pushed on. He's gone backwards in certain respects. You would think that once he made that breakthrough, that 47 would become more the norm rather than the exception, especially where the event is these days, where 45, 94 is the world record and 46s are what people like Ray Benjamin is running and Alison Dos Santos and Abirahman Samba is back in the mix of things with 47 lows. We see Nathaniel Ezekiel running 47 twos. That's probably where I expected Rashawn to be,
But with having certain injuries and the setback between training and competing, it really do, take its toll on the bodies. But good that he was able to advance. Unfortunate for Asini, Wilson. And again, sometimes you just never know what athletes are going through.
Well, he told us what was going on.
What was going on?
What happened is that he's had an issue where doctors have found polyps on his lungs.
Yeah. See, so again,
and
here he is
so
competing and you would never know.
And he actually was bleeding, he said. The reality is that he needs surgery to the tune of $2 million. But I think he might be in the process of getting some help. So hopefully that will work out for him.
As it from the government?
As it's from the government, yes. The national insurance plan and maybe, I don't know if there's going to be more support coming for that because the surgery is going to be necessary. If you have polyps on your lungs, that's not something to ignore.
Yeah.
Because that could be cancerous.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then it might be.
And again,
worse.
the athletes you only know of these things a lot of times afterwards.
Yeah.
Because again, when you wake up 4:30, 5 a.m. and you go to train, I mean, you want to make it. That's why you're doing it. You don't want to come up with excuses. And he could have made a decision after finding that out, like to back off and not compete. Let's focus on that, which would have been fine. I'm just saying though, it's very important to constantly grant grace, not just to our athletes, just in general, because we really don't be knowing what people are encountering.
Yeah, they're going through a lot. They go through a lot.
Yeah.
I had that very discussion earlier this morning where we're talking about the challenges that the athletes face on a daily basis. And when we throw those the criticism and the denigrating comments at them, it only makes their situations worse. But they go through a lot, and hopefully Asine can have those situations sorted, and then come back stronger than before because clearly he has the talent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much all the time we have for the Sports Club podcast. Looking forward to an eventful day tomorrow, aren't we?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once they're in action, we have to be optimistic. We have no reason not to be.
Yeah.
We have no reason not to be.
And Daniel, of course, is always optimistic about our athletes doing well and going on the podium
except the
and all that
4x4
jazz.
mixed relay.
Except for the 4x4 mixed relays, of course. But yeah.
we do have a shot with both the men's and women's 400 to potentially get in the final. And from what we've seen from Orlando and Tyson, there's a great Tyler Mason. Where did I get Tyson from a while ago? I don't even know which day this is, but I believe that they'll be able to get into that final. So I think there is a lot to look forward to, and it feels like a bit of a low, especially after seeing what we saw on Sunday. But you know, we have a great chance to finish on the podium come tomorrow.
All right. This is the Sports Club podcast here at the Jamaica Observer. Of course, it's powered by Jane Bank. It's been a pleasure bringing you another episode. And of course, we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow, wherever you view your podcast, but particularly on YouTube. It's goodbye for now.